They say school rules are made to keep things in order. No phones in class, no talking during exams, be on time, stay out of trouble. But there was one rule at St. Augustine's High School that felt different. It wasn't in the handbook. No one explained it, but it was painted in red above every single classroom door. Never stay after the final bell. At first, I thought it was a joke, some weird prank from the past, a tradition students passed down just to mess with new kids. But now I know the truth. That rule wasn't to keep students in line, it was to keep something else in line. And the day I broke it, I stopped being the person I thought I was. I transferred in mid-year, and Lockridge already felt like a town that didn't want outsiders. The air always smelled like wet leaves, heavy and stagnant. Even when the weather was dry, that dampness clung to everything. The sky was a constant shade of dull gray, as if the sun had forgotten this place. The people smiled too wide, too forced, like they were trying to hide something, their teeth glinting too brightly under the dull sun, almost unsettling. St. Augustine's wasn't a school. It was a mausoleum. Big black gates, thick iron bars, high stone walls that looked like they hadn't been touched in 100 years. The towers loomed like silent sentinels, watching everything and everyone. Their shadows seemed to stretch further than the walls would allow, creeping over the grounds like they had a life of their own. The first thing I noticed when I stepped inside wasn't the age of the building or the way the air felt heavy with dust and neglect. It was the silence, the kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, but presses down on you. The kind of silence that makes you wonder what's lurking just out of earshot, waiting to make a sound, waiting to speak. Students moved through the halls quickly, heads down, their footsteps muffled against the worn linoleum floors. Eyes fixed on their shoes as if afraid to look up to see what was watching them. Teachers barely spoke, their voices hushed and unremarkable. The loudest sound was the hum of the old lights flickering overhead like a broken heartbeat, distant yet constant. And then there were the doors, above every single one. Never stay after the final bell. Not handwritten, not spray-painted, burned as if branded with something hot, the edges curling like a scar that would never heal. It wasn't some faded message from years ago. It felt fresh, like someone had just done it yesterday. The kind of burn that made you flinch just looking at it. I asked questions. Of course I did, but everyone avoided them, turning their heads too quickly or walking away before I could finish. Sonia was the first to say anything at all. She was sitting next to me during lunch, her tray untouched. She'd been watching me for days, her gaze sharp, calculating. She wasn't like the others. Her eyes were always too wide, too alert. She told me the rule wasn't a joke, said it wasn't about detention or safety drills. Something comes out when the last bell rings, she said, her voice low and serious. Something that doesn't belong in our world. I laughed nervously. She didn't. Jay was the second person to speak about it, and he only did it after making sure no one else was listening. He leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. There was a kid, Lucas, junior, smart, quiet, stayed late for a makeup test. Next day, gone, vanished. I frowned, trying to understand. Jay's eyes darted around the hall, his face pale. His locker was sealed shut, his name erased from the attendance sheets. Teachers acted like he never existed. I raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping into my voice. Jay's voice dropped to a whisper. Except his best friend? She broke down in class, screamed about the man with no eyes. They sent her away. Jay swallowed hard, the words thick in his throat. It's not a legend, it's a warning. Don't be here when it rings again. I should have listened, but curiosity? It's a hell of a drug. One Thursday, I forgot my sketchbook in the art room. The final bell rang, just as I remembered. I had 10 minutes, I thought. Just grab it and leave. I was already halfway down the hall when I realized my mistake. The hall was empty. The doors to classrooms closed tight. Their silent interiors staring at me, the school felt like it had already been swallowed by the night, and it wasn't even sunset yet. The air felt heavy, thick, as if the building itself was holding its breath. So I turned back. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel. Shadows twisted in corners, shifting like they were trying to hide from me. The lights overhead flickered and buzzed, their glow dim and sickly. I quickened my pace, but my steps were too loud, too out of place. I reached the art room and turned the doorknob. It creaked open, the sound far too loud. My sketchbook sat right there on the table, untouched, waiting. I grabbed it, but as my fingers closed around it, I heard the second bell, not sharp, not like before. This one was slow, wet. It sounded wrong, like it had been dragged out of a grave. I froze. The room around me seemed to shift. The walls wavered like they were made of water. The floor beneath my feet seemed to ripple, as if the very ground was alive. I turned, and the hallway had changed. The colors were off. Everything had a sickly green tint. The air was colder, heavier. The light flickered, casting long, stretching shadows that seemed to claw at the walls. The posters on the walls were peeling, their faces half obscured by layers of old stained paper. The clocks had stopped, their hands frozen in time, stuck at an hour I couldn't recognize. I blinked, and the hallway was longer, endless. I stepped forward. My heart pounded in my chest. Each footfall seemed to echo, but there was something strange about the echoes. They didn't sound right. They didn't match my steps. I passed the same trophy case 3 times. I saw the same trash can, the same broken pencil. But it wasn't my school anymore. It was a twisted version of it, a memory of it, a distorted copy that didn't want me there. And that's when I saw the first shadow. It wasn't a person. It was taller, boneless. It moved without sound, sliding across the walls like oil, leaving behind a trail of dark, inky smoke. It didn't belong. I ducked into the janitor's closet, locked the door, held my breath. But it didn't matter. The lights flickered again, and suddenly the closet wasn't a closet anymore. It was a classroom, frozen, dusty desks, old books scattered across the floor, windows boarded up, the glass shattered in places. And on the blackboard, chalk had written, "You heard the bell. Now you belong to it." I screamed, ran. The hallway twisted like a snake, its walls alive. The lockers opened on their own, one by one, revealing their hidden secrets, hair, bones, broken glasses. One locker had a mirror inside, and my reflection wasn't mine. It smiled. I didn't. It lifted its hand, but I hadn't moved. I sprinted down the hallway, my lungs burning, turned corner after corner, my mind racing, adrenaline pumping. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. And then I saw it. The library, it was too big, too vast. The doors swung open on their own, their hinges creaking as they parted. Inside, books floated in midair, their pages turning slowly, as though being read by an invisible hand. A table in the center held piles of things: wallets, shoes, cracked phones, old student IDs, dozens of them. One had my face, but the name wasn't mine. The age was wrong, and the date, 1987. I backed away, dread filling my chest like ice. And that's when I saw him, the man with no eyes, tall, skin stretched tight like paper, so thin it looked as though it could tear at any moment. No mouth, no nose, just empty black holes where his eyes should have been. He moved like smoke, his body shifting and warping, as though he was both everywhere and nowhere at once. He came closer, and the bell rang again, but this time it was inside my head. I dropped to my knees, clutching my skull, trying to hold on to whatever sanity I had left. Memories began to slip away, my name blurring, everything I knew becoming indistinct. I crawled backward, not knowing where I was going, but desperate to escape. I stumbled into the bookshelves and fell through a secret door. A staircase spiraled upward, old, stone, crumbling. At the top, the bell tower awaited. The bell hung like a corpse, its metal surface covered in dark, jagged marks. Below it, scratched into the stone floor, were these words: "Ring once to leave, ring twice and stay forever." I grabbed the rope and pulled. Nothing. The rope wouldn't budge. I pulled again, harder. Nothing. The man with no eyes was behind me now. I grabbed the rope with both hands and screamed, every ounce of strength I had left going into the motion. Gong. The tower shook. The shadows screamed. Light poured in, and I woke up. In a hospital bed, I woke up. The sterile white walls of the hospital room felt suffocating. The sound of the IV dripping, the beeping of machines, the whispering of nurses in the hallway. It all seemed too normal, too disconnected from the horror I'd just experienced. I blinked, trying to shake off the feeling that something was wrong, that I was still trapped somewhere. But I was lying in a hospital bed, a thin blanket pulled up to my chest. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, as if I had been asleep for days. The nurses were whispering to each other, glancing at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. Their eyes darted away whenever I looked at them, like I was a puzzle they didn't want to solve. One of them approached me with a plastic cup of water. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice soft and careful. I nodded slowly, trying to find my words. The reality of the bell tower, the man with no eyes, it all felt like a dream, a nightmare. But the lingering dread in the pit of my stomach told me it wasn't. "The basement," I managed to whisper, my throat dry. Where did you find me?" Her eyes flickered for just a moment, a flash of something I couldn't place. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "We found you in the school basement. You collapsed near the old storage rooms. But the odd thing is," she hesitated, glancing around as if to make sure no one else was listening, "the school says you've been missing for 2 days. I froze. Missing for 2 days? 2 days? It felt like mere hours since I was last in that nightmare, since I was sprinting through the hallways of St. Augustine's, trying to escape something that didn't belong. The feeling of the bell ringing, of the world twisting around me, the reflections that weren't mine. None of that could have happened just days ago. It felt like an eternity. 2 days? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded. Yes, and you've been different since we found you. Your vitals are fine, but there's something about your eyes. Her voice trailed off and she stood back. "We'll keep you here overnight for observation, but I think you'll be fine. Just rest." Rest. I wasn't sure if that would help. Rest wouldn't erase the memories of the reflection that smiled at me, or the man with no eyes who had been lurking in every corner of my mind. They let me go after 2 days. Back home, everything felt off. Like a cold breeze had swept through the house and left an unsettling chill in the air. The lights in my room flickered when I entered, the overhead bulb stuttering like a malfunctioning heart. I frowned, then shook my head. The light was probably old, that was all. But when I turned to my cat, it hissed. I froze. My cat had never hissed at me before. It arched its back, its fur standing on end, its eyes wide and fixed on me. But it wasn't looking at me. It was looking at something behind me, something I couldn't see. I slowly turned around. Nothing. Just the empty corner of my room. When I turned back, the cat was already gone, having bolted under the bed in fear. I stood there, my breath shallow, confused, trying to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. Then I heard a voice, my mother's voice. "David, is that you?" My heart skipped a beat. I didn't recognize the name. I turned toward the kitchen. There she stood, her hands on her hips, smiling at me like she hadn't a care in the world. But something was wrong. Her smile was wrong. It didn't reach her eyes. "Mom?" I asked, taking a step toward her, my voice shaking. "It's me. It's me. I'm not David. I'm—" She blinked, as if startled by my words. "What are you talking about? Of course, you're David. Who else would you be?" I could feel the world around me closing in like I was drowning in a thick fog of confusion. "I'm not David," I repeated, more forcefully this time. "I'm not him." She laughed, but it was cold, unfamiliar. "Yes, you are. You've always been David." I stumbled backward, clutching the doorframe to steady myself. "I'm not. The words were hard to form, as if something inside me was being squeezed, tightened, twisted. Her smile grew wider, stretching unnaturally across her face. "You are David, sweetie. You're mine. Always have been." I blinked, and that's when I saw it. Her reflection. It wasn't hers. It smiled, but it wasn't her smile. It was a grin that wasn't right. The eyes were black pits, like voids, sucking in everything around them. "Mom?" I whispered, terrified. She didn't answer. Instead, her reflection turned to look at me. The reflection, not— I felt my skin crawl. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. "I'm not David," I whispered again, my voice breaking. My reflection in the hallway mirror suddenly blinked before I did. It smiled wider. It wasn't just her. It was everything. I stumbled into the living room, my legs weak, my mind spinning, and that's when I heard it. The bell, not outside, not in the distance, but from inside the walls. It rang once, then twice, from everywhere. I covered my ears, my heart pounding in my chest. It was too loud, too close. It was in me. I couldn't escape it. I ran to the bathroom, throwing open the door, desperate to look at myself, desperate to make sure that I was still me. But when I looked in the mirror, my reflection didn't blink. It didn't even move. It just stood there, watching me. I backed away, my pulse racing, and then it smiled. That wasn't my reflection. That wasn't me. I stumbled out of the bathroom, looking at the hallway. The shadows seemed to stretch, moving toward me. They reached for my feet, pulling at my legs like they wanted to drag me back into the school, back into the darkness. I tried to run, but the bell rang again. Inside my head, My skull felt like it was about to crack open. I fell to my knees, my vision blurred, and that's when I heard it. The whisper, the same whisper from the library. You heard the bell, now you belong to it. So now I'm warning you. Don't go back. Don't get curious. If you ever see red writing over a door that says, "Never stay after the final bell," believe it, because the bell doesn't call students. It doesn't call teachers. It rings for the next soul. And if you hear it twice, you're not going home. You're going deeper. The school, it never leaves. It's still here, watching, waiting, and if you look close enough, you might hear the bell. And if you do, you'll know. You'll know that you're already too late.